In the world of Naruto, the legend of Kakashi Hatake, the copy ninja, the man who used the Sharingan to copy over 1,000 jutsu, is known as far and wide, to the point that legendary shinobi like Zabuza, they knew right away who he was. As we all know, this was only made possible because of one moment of sacrifice by Obito Uchiha, who saved Kakashi during the Third Ninja War and gave him the Sharingan afterwards. However, what if this never happened? What if on the day that Obito saved Kakashi, he hesitated to do so? How would the Naruto story change? Would things end up for better or would they end up for worse? Let's find out in today's newest installment of Naruto What If, where we explore alternate timelines in the Naruto universe that show what would have happened if major or minor moments from the Naruto manga occurred differently. Time, space, reality, a single decision can create endless possibilities for alternate timelines, different from the one that we know in the Naruto world. Some of these timelines end with a happier ending, and others end with a darker ending. A single choice can cause what seems like a linear path to branch out into a prism of endless choices. In order for this moment with Kakashi and Obito to happen, we must first establish a trigger point, a set moment in time which leads to a canon event occurring, which in this case would be 1 year before Naruto is born, when the Third Ninja War is still ongoing and the members of Team Minato partake in the Kanabi Bridge mission. In this timeline, the moment the rocks begin to fall and one strikes Kakashi on his blind side, instead of Rin gasping in shock, which alerts Obito, who then saves Kakashi, neither Obito or Rin would hear Kakashi as he fell to the ground, and instead they would keep running, with them only realizing a few moments too late that Kakashi had been crushed by the boulder. This moment would change everything. Obito's eyes, they would well up with tears as Rin began to see Kakashi with half his body sticking out from underneath the boulder, and Obito's freshly awakened Tsutomu Sharingan would begin to change patterns as he saw the light fading from Kakashi's eyes as they exchanged their last words, with Kakashi handing him what remained of his Tanto, and Kakashi would remark that Obito's Sharingan had changed patterns into something new. Kakashi would also ask Obito to return the kunai that Minato had given him before finally dying of his injuries. A grieving Obito would take the sobbing Rin to the surface, and with this newly awakened Mangekyo Sharingan, he'd outright butcher the stone ninja who had been waiting outside, with Kamui subconsciously cutting on the moment that any attack was launched at him, and as Obito's phases through him, he would kill him with one swipe as he took his head off. When the other stone ninja appeared and used the earth release rock slide jutsu, and Obito with his rage amp would butcher all of them, due in part to both the Mangekyo Sharingan powers as well as the power boost that comes from the Mangekyo Sharingan, and that additional amp that would make his Sharingan powers even stronger due to the hatred he was feeling. By the time that Minato arrived, he'd see Obito covered in blood and the bodies of all the dead ninja around him, and without seeing Kakashi's body, he'd know exactly what happened. In the days afterwards, it would be Obito who would be praised as the hero of the Third Ninja War, with Obito in possession of the Mangekyo Sharingan during the mission where Rin once again was captured and had the Three Tails sealed inside of her. Obito would be able to stop the Mist Ninja from doing so, which in turn keeps Rin alive, and she never becomes a jinchuuriki for the Three Tails. This of course makes for a huge shift because it means that Madara's plans to gaslight Obito, they have changed, and he'd have to find some other Uchiha to use as a pawn to groom before having them work with Zetsu to recruit Nagato to their cause. The Third Ninja War would end with the same results occurring as they did in the original timeline. Yahiko would die shortly before the war ended, and whoever was unlucky enough to be the Uchiha that Madara gaslit would end up recruiting Nagato. Minato will become Hokage, and Obito will be hailed as the major hero of the war during this timeline. With Obito not working with Madara, the Nine Tails attack, it would never happen, since the whole reason Obito specifically went to Konoha was Naruto's birth was on Rin's death anniversary. With whoever Madara chose to gaslight having no attachment to Rin, the premature attempted capture of the Nine Tails would not occur. This means that Naruto would never be made into a jinchuuriki because Minato would have been able to repair the seal that was placed on Kushina. This also means that Naruto would grow up with both of his parents. During the time in the years that follows, more changes would occur that drastically alter the timeline. While there was initially a non-support on the part of the Uchiha for Minato being chosen as Hokage over Fugaku and over Orochimaru, I do believe this timeline sees better relations for a few reasons. The first one and largest one being the lack of the Nine Tails incident. With the Nine Tails attack never happening, the discrimination against the Uchiha, it will be pulled back substantially, and with Minato being Hokage, Danzo wouldn't have the freedom to work in the village politics, maneuvering them against the clan in the way that he did. That coupled with Minato having been the sensei for Obito, who would now be a Jonin due to his efforts in the war, as well as Rin, it remains very likely that Minato takes a very healthy interest in beginning to groom Obito to become the 5th Hokage whenever Minato eventually steps down. The treaty with the Cloud Village that gets done 3 years after the war, which officially pulled the Cloud Village and Leaf Village out of open war, would eventually be done without any shenanigans by the 4th Raikage, who initially used the head Cloud Ninja to attempt to kidnap Hinata. In this timeline, the Raikage would know better because of the respect for Minato's power and the understanding that he couldn't try what he did with the 3rd Hokage, who was nearing his 60s by this point in the timeline. Minato was much younger and much stronger. Itachi would still become a Genin early, being a clear standout prodigy, and Danzo's approach of Itachi at the academy, it would be noticed by Minato, who would be very wary of Danzo because he wouldn't be blinded by friendship in the way that the 3rd Hokage was. In this timeline, with the relations with the Uchiha on better terms due to Obito being alive and Minato being able to see the pattern, with Itachi's sensei purposely not pushing his team to the Chunin exams, despite them taking on A-rank missions consistently, Minato would have Team 2, that being Itachi's team, placed into the Chunin exams, where Itachi would make Chunin even earlier than he did in the original timeline, and Itachi's teammate Tenma would never die because Obito isn't evil in this timeline, which means his other teammate Shinko would remain a ninja as well. With no Hyuga incident, while Neji would bear a grudge against the main branch, it wouldn't be as strong as it was in the original timeline due to his father being alive. The academy for Naruto and Sasuke goes much more differently than the original timeline, with Naruto being given training by both of his parents, and because Minato could actually handle the paperwork, he wouldn't be as near of an absentee father as Naruto was to Boruto. So while Naruto would be a bit of a brat, he wouldn't be anywhere near the attention-seeking brat that he was in the original timeline, let alone the level of brat that Boruto was in the first arc of Boruto's manga. Due to the Ashura and Indra effect, Naruto and Sasuke, they would still be rivals, which in turn, having a more skilled Naruto would make Sasuke even more talented in this timeline due to having to work harder. Itachi would eventually awaken his Sharingan at a later point, likely when he's on a Chunin mission. The Uchiha massacre would also never happen since the relations would be stronger, particularly the treatment of Obito and Itachi, which means that the Uchiha would have the opportunity to see Shisui with this Mangekyo Sharingan actually reach his prime, and Obito would continue to grow stronger as well, likely getting training from Minato. While Minato is no Madara Uchiha, I can say with confidence I find it hard to believe Minato would not be able to whip Obito into shape, similar to what Madara did with the year of training, which means Obito at this point in the timeline would be slightly weaker than the original Obito, but having both Mangekyo gives him more hacks to take into battle, and Obito's ceiling is extremely high, so eventually he would end up surpassing Minato. Orochimaru in this timeline would more likely than not be captured when Minato learns of Orochimaru's experiments on children, because unlike Hiruzen, there will be no hesitation on Minato's part to strike down Orochimaru, and Minato will be able to do so with ease. Between the Flying Raijin and his Sealing Jutsu, Orochimaru stands no chance and he is thrown in jail for the rest of his life, and eventually he has his mind read. Whatever blocks are placed on his mind, they are eventually broken by Inoichi, and they learn that Danzo was the one protecting Orochimaru this whole time. That is going to lead to Minato and Obito taking down Danzo and arresting him too. This means that Danzo's route is disbanded, which means that Sai is placed into the academy and he would graduate with the class of Neji, Tenten, and Rock Lee, likely hard carrying whatever team he was placed on, and the 16-year-old Itachi be made the Jonin sensei for Sai's team. Suigetsu would never be captured and remain a Mist Village ninja. Karin would remain a Grass Village ninja too. Jugo will be running through the wilderness a slave to his genetics until he's ultimately killed. The Sound Five would be off living their best lives until one of them died, because they would never be experimented on. And Kabuto, this is where it gets interesting. During the time that Orochimaru left Konoha, Danzo was in the process of trying to kill Kabuto's mother. Minato likely would have called her back to the orphanage, and Kabuto, even though he was trained as a ninja, will be given the option to stay at the orphanage with her or become a ninja in service to Konoha, which I believe based on where he ultimately ended up, I believe Kabuto would remain at the orphanage with his mother. Elsewhere in the Mist Village, with Obito not being the one controlling the Mizukage, there will be no coup d'etat attempt against Yagura, who would still be in control of the Three Tails, and he would not be the bloodlusted being that we know him to be in the original timeline. This means Kisame would never become a rogue ninja, and Zabuza, he would never go rogue either, which means Haku is likely raised as a Mist Village shinobi. Obito would likely become Naruto sensei in the next year when Naruto graduates from the academy, which would only further improve relations with the Uchiha clan, because him being the Jonin squad leader entrusted with the Hokage's son would be a sign of good faith. However, the makeup of Team 7, it will be drastically different. Originally, Naruto and Sasuke placed on the team together because Naruto had the lowest scores at the academy and Sasuke had the highest score. While Sakura scored extremely high on the written exam, we know from the first fan book that her taijutsu was barely passable, which is why she was the one chosen to balance out the team. This means that Sasuke would be on another team with one of the others that passed the Genin exam, and this is where that gets very interesting. While we know there are 9 Genin from Naruto's class, it is very important to remember, which a lot of people forget, there are more teams that passed the academy exam, but they failed the Genin exam that was set forth by the Jonin sensei who was assigned to them, which, as Kakashi states in volume 1, it is by design. People forget that there were 27 academy students who passed, but only 9 of them by design were allowed to pass the Genin exam. All the rest of them were sent back to the academy. For the sake of balance, we'll say that Naruto, having both of his parents, would be able to get up to an average passable grade. So just straight C's across the board, which for reference, Naruto's original report card at the academy was 4 F's, each of them being in ninjutsu, genjutsu, classroom behavior and cooperation, an A in positivity, and a B in taijutsu. We'll have to pull a member from Team Kurenai since the Inoshikacho trio has to stay together. The 2 people from the team most likely to swap out are either going to be Shino or Kiba, since both of them had the higher grades on that team. 2 A's, 3 C's, and 1 B for Kiba, 1 A, 4 B's, and 1 C for Shino, and 3 A's, 2 B's, and 1 F for Hinata. In my opinion, Shino would be the one swapped out for Sasuke when looking for balance based strictly off of grades, particularly since he has the highest ninjutsu rating out of all the members in their classroom, joining Sasuke and Ino as the only ones who got an A in ninjutsu. This would lead to a bit of a change in the Land of Waves arc. I still see Naruto pulling the brat card during this time period because he want to prove himself, only instead of because of the whole I want to be Hokage one day so people can acknowledge me stuff. It would be more so because he wants to prove himself as being more than the Hokage's son. When the Mist Village Chunin do try to attack, Naruto wouldn't freeze up as much because he's more competent in this timeline, but Shino will be the one who stopped the ninja in their tracks because the bugs would have picked up on them beforehand. I still believe Obito has the team continue the mission like Kakashi did, and when they do run into whatever rogue ninja was hired by Gato, Obito kills them with no difficulty, and the Great Naruto Bridge would now forever be known as the Great Bridge of Obito, with Naruto likely still gaining his ninja way during this mission when he sees how Gato treats the shinobi he employed. The Chunin exams, it goes down way differently now because Orochimaru is either in jail or he's been executed alongside Danzo. There would be no Konoha crush arc because there is no Orochimaru gaslighting the Sand Village into an attack. This means that Konoha is never attacked by the Sand Village, and I still believe at some point Jiraiya would take interest in training Naruto, who would be able to better prepare much faster than before. For the Chunin exams, if we keep the exact same matchups as before, Naruto likely loses to Neji, especially since there's less likely a chance that this Neji beats Hinata within an inch of her life because his father is still alive. But Naruto does the best that he can in this timeline, but once his chakra points are shut down, Neji bullies Naruto into submission. In terms of who wins the tournament, that's irrelevant. But I do see the Leaf Village having a pretty strong showing with Sasuke, Shino, and Shikamaru each becoming Chunin. If Sai's team is held back like Might Guy's team was, then I could see Sai being made into a Chunin as well. From the Sand Village, I could see both Temari and Kankuro being made into Chunin. Where things get very interesting is when it comes to Itachi, who, if we stay with the timeline as it currently is, he should be showing signs of his illness at this point. Upon seeing such a talented shinobi, a generational talent, suffer from an illness that nobody can cure, I'm of the belief that Minato would have a team accompany Jiraiya with the task of tracking down Tsunade to help make a cure, which I believe that team would likely be Jiraiya requesting Naruto be sent with him, his godson. I also believe there's a strong chance that they can track down Tsunade and have her return to the Leaf Village to treat Itachi and cure his illness, since she was able to find a cure for Rock Lee's injuries, which were viewed as being impossible. And given the medicines that Itachi got in the original timeline from the Howling Wolf Village for his medicines, which I've covered in detail in the Sasuke Gen Raiden playlist, I believe that Tsunade would be able to find that cure for Itachi. This means that Konoha now has a healthy Itachi entering into his prime, potentially an Itachi with Mangekyo, depending on if he awakens as Mangekyo or not, as well as Minato, who would now be in his prime in his late 30s, even stronger than he was originally. I venture to say that this Minato would have passed Hashirama, given the extra 13 years added to his lifespan right now, and the fact that Minato at the age of 24 was only a tier below Hashirama in power. And then you also have the fact that Boruto era Hokage Naruto in the Naruto Redstone story flat out says that had Minato been allowed to live, he believes that Minato would have been even stronger than he was. I think there's a more than reasonable argument that he would have surpassed Hashirama by now. Curing Itachi would also make Minato have even more goodwill with the Uchiha clan than ever before. By the time the Akatsuki began making their move, I do believe that Jiraiya would eventually learn about the organization, which would look a little different given that Itachi and Kisame wouldn't be members, and obviously Obito, who at this point in the timeline I believe would be stronger than Minato, given how high Obito's ceiling is, particularly because this Obito would have both Mangekyo's Sharingan. Given he only found out about the group because he was tracking Orochimaru, I think it's more likely than not that Jiraiya picks up on the information during the 2.5 time skip, where Han and Fu are both sealed away. Someone with a network of spies like Jiraiya would definitely learn that 2 jinchuuriki suddenly went missing. This of course would be what pushes Naruto to train even harder during the time skip, because he would know there's an organization that's out there that's coming after his mother, the Nine Tails Jinchuuriki. Between training with Obito, training with Jiraiya, Naruto likely also picks up the Flying Raijin from his father and Uzumaki Sealing Jutsu from his mother. While Naruto is a bit of a goofball and he isn't the sharpest knife in the drawer, Kushina would know how to train him, since more than one person said in Naruto's manga, most famously Tsunade, that Naruto is a lot like his mother than his father Minato. This would also prompt Minato to try and broker an alliance, but given where things stand right now with the nation still being in open cold warfare, and Gar's own failed attempts to call a 5 Kage summit after the Kazekage rescue arc where Gar got captured, I believe that Minato would be unsuccessful just as Gar was in the original timeline. I do believe when Data tracks down Gar that we have an even bigger change to the timeline here. Most notably, I believe that Sasori would have to step in when the fight begins, because the moment that Gar is attacked, while Gar would be more unstable, since in this battle he would have never had his fight with Naruto, which means his heart wouldn't quite know what love is right now and he'd be a different person. I do believe that Gar's father Rasa would be able to assist Gar, and I think they're more than enough to take down Deidara. Rasa alone would do it with high difficulty, but with the duo, assuming that Gar is as strong as he was at this point in the original timeline, they would have no difficulty teaming up and taking him down. But I do believe that Sasori stepping in to help is what's going to make the difference here, with Rasa being killed and Gar being defeated. This of course means that when Kankuro gives chase, he too ends up dying, because in this timeline there will be no goodwill between the Leaf Village and the Sand Village, and the Sand Village being led by a group of people from the older generation, they are more inclined to do what the other villages did, which is keep their issues to themselves. Chiyo, she would fail to save Kankuro, who would die on the operating table as a result. By the time the Sand Village tracks down Gar's location, the One Tails is extracted from his body, and the team led by Tamari is forced to carry back his corpse to the Sand Village. With Kankuro and Gar both dead, Tamari would be the only choice to be Kazekage, making the village be forced to break tradition, and so she would be the first female Kazekage. Meanwhile, the Two Tails be captured, and afterwards I do believe that Hidan and Kakuzu would enter into the Land of Fire, and after learning about the attack on the Fire Temple, this is where things get very interesting. Minato would have a team assembled to go hunt down the Akatsuki duo, but I do believe where things change is each team would have a Flying Raijin kunai on them, as well as a small toad from Mount Miyaboku to communicate with Minato when they track the duo down, because this would be enough of a threat to warrant the Hokage getting involved. The moment that Shikamaru's team finds Hidan and Kakuzu, I believe they do try to combat them. The instant things get out of hand and Asuma starts getting bullied, I believe that Shikamaru will have Minato summoned by the Toad, and when Minato appears, the battle that follows is intense. Minato would easily take down Hidan without much trouble, and the battle with Kakuzu would get intense pretty quickly, with Minato having to fight Kakuzu's 5 hearts on his own, or a limited backup from Asuma, all while Hidan's severed head has a sealing jutsu on his mouth to keep him from reading scripture from the book of Jashin at them. Eventually, I believe Minato will take down each of Kakuzu's heart and have Kakuzu's body taken to Konoha, as well as Hidan's head, so that Inoichi can read his mind to gain information, eventually getting past whatever genjutsu blocks he has on him. On the other hand, if Obito is the one who stumbles across the duo, Obito, with both Mangekyou's Sharingan, absolutely shatters them in a fight that is too unfair to imagine, because there's an argument again, this Obito will be even stronger than the Minato in this timeline, who surpasses Hashirama. And given both of them would be stronger than Hashirama and Kakuzu lost to Hashirama, you see where this goes. This of course changes everything regardless as to who comes into contact with Hidan and Kakuzu, because Minato and the Leaf Village will now have intel on the remaining Akatsuki members, which can now be paired up with the information in the bingo books to gather intel on the members that can be identified. I do believe that with the likely capture of the Three Tails, which was Sasori's target, so that will be Yagura the Mizukage, the fact that the Akatsuki would have killed 2 Kage now and have sealed away the 1 Tails, the 2 Tails, 3 Tails, 4 Tails, 5 Tails, and the 7 Tails, that is likely enough grounds for a 5 Kage summon to be called, especially if Pain somehow manages to track down the 6 Tail, who is a wandering jinchuuriki, and seal him away. However, as the Kage are made aware of the summit, which will place the events right now a lot sooner than they happened originally, since all this would be taking place before Sasuke in the original timeline killed Orochimaru, I do still believe that Jiraiya would eventually learn of Pain's location, and this is where things get very interesting. Minato being alive, it changes everything due to the flying Raijin. Minato would be able to teleport away with Jiraiya if things got too tricky. In fact, I believe the most likely thing is that Minato and Obito both accompany Jiraiya to the Rain Village, which changes this whole fight. If someone like Jiraiya was able to take down several of the 6 Paths of Pain on his own, a genius like Minato, who more likely than not, due to having an additional 16 years to live now, would have been able to master Sage Mode, where he can maintain it longer as a perfect Sage than just being able to use it for 1 attack and then dropping out of Sage Mode altogether like we saw. This becomes a one-sided slaughter, because you got Sage Mode Jiraiya with both of the toads on his shoulders, Sage Mode Minato, and you got double Mangekyou's Sharingan Obito. Nagato also can't use Chibaku Tensei in this fight because they are in the Rain Village, and the trio, they just bully the 6 Paths of Pain and they capture Konan and Nagato. Really and truly, Obito with both of his Mangekyou's Sharingan is enough to do the job. This is a huge blow for whoever is working on behalf of Madara, especially because Konoha wouldn't be able to read Nagato's memory, especially once Minato places one of those seals on him to restrict his chakra and his Rinnegan. Between reading his mind or reading Konan's mind, they would have the names of all the remaining Akatsuki members to share at the 5 Kage summit. The other Kage, which would likely see Mei become Mizukage at this point, unless of course someone like Zabuza was made Mizukage, they would all be forced to fall in line, with Minato being named the leader of the alliance, and a manhunt would be conducted to track down and kill the remaining Akatsuki members. During this time, if it ever came to war because Madara's disciple demanded the return of Nagato and handing over Killer Bee and Kushina, it becomes a one-sided stomp, and both Naruto and Sasuke alongside Obito, Shisui, and Itachi, they would make legends for themselves in the 4th Great Ninja War. This of course would force Zetsu into hiding, as he would have to wait for another set of reincarnates to pop up when Naruto and Sasuke eventually died. But with Minato knowing what Zetsu looks like from having read Konan and Nagato's minds, and knowing how Zetsu moves through the ground, I believe they would likely track him down and they would have him killed. This of course will lead to Obito eventually being named 5th Hokage when Minato steps down, and obviously Kaguya is never revived, and unfortunately Naruto and Sasuke never break the cycle of hatred between the two, And while each is more skilled than before, they would also be much weaker than before as well, with the trade-off being that Obito and Minato and potentially Itachi and Shisui are now stronger than Hashirama since each would have been allowed to reach their primes, with Obito obviously having the highest ceiling out of all of them. While this what if ends off on a happy ending, you can click here to the left to see the other what ifs on the playlist, which have the same method of writing with strip away plot armor for both the better in some cases and the worse in other cases depending on the scenario, or you can click here to watch a video from my Anime Explained channel.